interviewing people from around the Gunpla community. And today, we have the pleasure of getting to speak with Ben. Ben, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Ben. I'm from Germany, and as may some of you know, I'm Dragantha from Dragantha Gunpla Forge. I'm in the hobby for around 10 years with some breaks, and yeah, my backstory with Gunpla is I was not really into Gunpla or a Gundam itself as a kid. I was more like into Beyblade and pocket monsters and digital monsters and something like that. But when I was first get into Gunpla, it was like with the series Double O, because I was so in love with the GN drive. So it kind of drives me or drove me back into the hobby. Before that, I was mostly being customizing Beyblades and here and there as not a kid girl, but I had limited space. So at one point I was like, okay, I can do that. I want to get into the hobby. And yeah, that where the story begin.
So we've all, I think, been there. Of one of the shows. It was usually Seed or Double O gets people back in,
Yeah.
and you can reverse of the other people. If you started on Seed, you're like on Double O. If you started on Double O,
Uh,
you're like on Seed. So
yeah.
we've all been there. Now you've been building kind of on and off, and you've been building again for a while.
Yeah.
What do you have a preference of grade, master grade, real grade, high grade?
My first preference was high grade because I had so much to catch on. So it seems like because of the grade and of the cheaper price range, I was like, okay, I want to start with high grade, because if I screw up, and I will, of course, a lot in the beginnings, it doesn't hurt so much like a master grade. So sometimes I was building a master grade, but I preferred high grades or 1 to 144 as well, real grades, the time they came out. But at one point I had a limitation in the range and in the projects I had, so I switched in middle of 2019 over to master grade.
Yeah, I think definitely, the high grade. We there are the just purely master grade people out there, but
Yeah,
yeah, high grade. A lot of people start with it, and it really is just sometimes refreshing to snap build a kit in
yeah.
an hour and be done with it and be like, cool, that looks fine. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need this project right now. But it is definitely. I think a lot of people move on to the real grade or the master
Yeah,
grade eventually.
yeah,
Now, speaking of all the kits that have come out in 2019, do you have a particular one that you've built in the last year that you kind of pick as your favorite?
yeah. I usually don't get much done in a year because I'm more experimenting than building or completing something. That's my thing. Everyone knows. But one kit that hooked me really up was the narrative C packs, because it's a kind of like prototype thing between the new Gundam and the Unicorn. And that kit was like, okay, I like that. It's from the UC, not usually my style of series, but I painted it up and it was okay, I like this. That's my favorite kit from 2019.
That's definitely a solid pick, and especially
Yeah.
talking about your paint scheme on it. It is gorgeous. I remember seeing it a few
Thank
months
you.
ago, of course, it being like, "Oh my god, this is the best!" Because at the time when it came out, everyone was doing different colored psycho frames and different things like that. But the colors that you had used in it were it's a hard quality to describe. But they were so deep and rich and didn't give off that like kind of fish-like color that the psycho frame gives off, and you did the blues, and everything just matched so well. We'll try to have a picture up so that people understand what we're talking about. But just gorgeous builds. Ballpark, how long did that take to finish?
The snap building itself took me like, yeah, an hour. So cleaning it up another hour. I'm filling all the seams and the gaps and the voids with epoxy and reshaping some stuff. The initial building and then prepping was like 5 hours with drying time of the glue, and then painting like 2 hours, because that was my test piece on the E7 color range. So I kind of played around and I was like, okay, I have this awesome pinkish red. So I try a little bit modulation color, primed it white. I was like little experimenting with a clear pink and the solar red from E7. So yeah, it came out pretty okay. And I'm also like, okay, it's clean. I like that. So I move on with cleaner builds, because it's a different kind of story to have a clean build in front of you instead of a weathered.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that one was like, okay, it's a new color, it's a new Gunpla, so try a new thing, make it clean.
And I think that's something that definitely, talking about all the colors and everything, I think gets understated. Is everything is so crisp and sectioned off that you don't have any color bleed. Everything is where it needs to be. And maybe that's not the initial thing people recognize, but like when you stare at that kit, because it's easy to do, it just looks so like that's what I wish it had looked out like out of box. Like those colors are perfect. The E7 just blew everything else away. Like I that's by far the best version I think I've seen of the C packs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, painting is not my biggest thing. I hate it actually, but yeah, it's a necessary thing in the skill range you have, and it's even the basics. If you get your basics done, it's okay, and these 7 colors are good to go.
We now know the E7 colors. They're
Yeah.
good to use. Speaking on painting,
Mhm.
what do you use? Do you have like an airbrush setup? Do you do any hand painting?
Both. You have an airbrush and you have your hand brush, and you can't do all with one tool. So if you want to, you get the most out of your model, you have to hand paint some parts, like verniers, thrusters, the eyes. You can do it with reverse wash, the stuff like that, but sometimes you have to touch up, because some parts are so tiny. If you reverse wash them, you scrape off some of the animal paint, so you have to repaint some parts. So I have a whole airbrush. I can show it. I have a whole airbrush table there set up with different kind of airbrushes, and then also hand paint stuff, and so I can touch up some points later if I mess up, or polish it. So you have to be pretty good with both things, in not in using them, but in knowing when you have when but in knowing if you know like the time you have to use it. Sorry, it's 1 a.m.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely, with it being 1 a.m., all the mistakes. Now, when you showed us the airbrush
Mhm.
station, it looked like it would have got 3 or 4 airbrushes over there.
4.
4.
I have two um 200 Steenbeck Ultra point 2, one especially for animal paints, one for like fine details and stuff with the normal lacquer paints. I have customized evolution, so I have the fine line tip and then set in it, and I have a water, and this is for like a backup if I have to quick change some paints, and that's for backup, so I can switch between them if I need it.
That, especially for like the types of projects you do, it is almost necessary. I mean,
Yeah.
you could use just one or two brushes, but it would take so long cleaning, changing, moving things around that it's just not practical in terms of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Um, but that does serve a good point. You can't use just one tool, and
Yeah.
I know I'm terrible about that. I'll hand brush till the day I die just because I can't be bothered to mix paints. But that does, I think a lot of people see these customs and they're like, oh, that's really cool. And then there's another section of people that are like, I understand how much work went into that.
Hmm.
And hearing that, I think kind of pushes more of that towards like, oh, that this is like months and months of like constant work using multiple tools and doing all these fine detail things, and that's how you get that level of detail that you're known for.
That's like taking step by step. So you can't judge a project from the beginning. So that's like every modeler who's in the hobby for a couple of years can tell you that. And you have to include that you fail at some point, because there's so much variation in a build. So you have to be kind of prepared to switch something like that. And yeah, it's like you have to think outside the box. So, and also doing a little bit of research. So what I have to do first to get that detail out of it, or get to that point I want the model to look like.
Yeah, and that is something, before we'd started recording, we talked about a
Mhm.
little, that you really take all this to the next step, the next level, with kind of your most recent big thing, the Double O Sepher.
Mhm.
Not only was that a super ambitious project because you had to build so much of it from scratch, um, you even like put a backstory to it, which is like when you said that, it just blew my mind. I'm like, I've never done that for anything. Like that's insane. Aside from maybe like some like, oh, this would be in build divers, haha, that's it's easy shoe in there. But like the whole story and everything's phenomenal. Not only the kit, which is also phenomenal, but that is just like you don't hear that a lot. And I think that there's something to be appreciated for that. But speaking of the Double O Sepher, um, kind of start with where you drew the inspiration, and then kind of I guess go into the story, I suppose, and then like the whole list of things you had to do to make it.
Yeah, it was not easy, and I'm not 100% satisfied with it. I have it set up over there because the detail is full, and it's not even supposed to be in there. But yeah, it was not easy. So the inspiration, I get it from all the stuff. So what I usually do is, if I have an idea, I go and research. So I usually do like going over all GBWC footage. I search in Japanese forums. I search on Tumblr, Pinterest, like everything. If anyone had it done before, because on two because of two things. If anyone has done it before, I can orient it. Or I get a little bit of orientation of someone who was like a step before me. So, and the other thing is, if nobody has it done, so I can do it like I want, like kind of thing. So, and then starting with Double O, so my beloved series in the franchise, it's I bought this the time they were released. Those are the novels from Denkeki Hobby, and they're from 2009 and had all the backstories, all the prototypes from Naoki, and the gimmick from the GN Zephyr from 2009. So, and the only reference it's in the world because it was a gimmick, and even that. I found out was designed with a computer. So there is no real scratch-built model made. They had the computer program, CNC'd it in the tool, sent it to Kawaguchi, print it out for the gimmick, and that's all. So I even tried to contact the original builder, but I realized, okay, he's just put it together and painted it, and well, like in the magazine, but he was not like, okay, I did it from scratch. And building the whole project, I realized because this was made with a computer program, there are so much parts and different shapes. The first version I did was like, okay, I want to try to get as much as close to the original. But even the top part of the core unit from the Zephyr, that's a hell. I cut it out like 2 meters of pipes to get the shape, but it was like, okay, that's not stable. And I had to think like 20 steps ahead. I had to paint it, the weight, the proportions. It's not easy. And having it finished, or at that point I can say, okay, it's a prototype to be finished. I was like, okay, if I get my 3D printer, I try it again. But even at that point, designing it in a 3D program out of something you made from scratch, it's not easy too, because you have to get used to the program too. And
Yeah,
I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, I try to build it from scratch again before I print it out with my 3D printer.
yeah, it's definitely like there's a learning curve to all of it, and it's such an ambitious thing. It's like the entire backpack. We'll try to have some photos flashing through here so people have a reference. It even if it was just one non-moving, just solid hunk of plastic, there's so many intricate details that's still a ton of work. But going through and looking at kind of the step-by-step build process that you went through, there's so many parts, and you're like, how did this even happen? Like, there's just what in it like it blows my, like, I literally, looking at it, my brain could not comprehend what was happening. I'm just like, oh, there's a piece, but there's another. How? What? I don't understand it. And I just, that it's one of the really, like, seeing behind the curtain, seeing that whole process, especially for something this constructive, is a whole nother level. Especially for people who just kind of recreationally build and maybe paint here and there, that's just like mind blowing. What? Oh yeah. The actual Zephyr unit itself, kind of like material wise, you used molds. You had mentioned. Probably some sheets of plastic, I'm assuming, in there. But what overall, like, what tools and materials did you end up using just for that part? Because that's the biggest part of the build.
So the first thing I was doing is like, I sketch a lot, and you see it on some of the Gunpla Network videos when I was working there. I doodle and sketch a lot, so I tried, okay, the first of all, I need the exact dimensions of it. I had my files, I have all 4 of them. I had researched the internet, there's also the site Gundam Wiki. I had my, so I checked back with the original stuff, and I was like searching for 2 weeks to get the gimmick pack. It was like feeling, okay, it's the last of the world.
Yeah.
So, and I was looking around, okay, so before I had the gimmick from the Denkeki hobby, I oriented like with photos. But there was a limit because not the sketches, the mechanical files, or the photographs on the internet can give me that kind of depth I need. So, okay, sketching it out, I tried it, failed, of course. So, and then after 2 weeks, I got my gimmick pack. Then I was took the measurements, checked it back with a math, and I was trying to look, okay, what would it look like in master grade? Because it's Furoku grade, it's first grade. There's not much detail. You can get a hell out of it with scribing, but I was like, no, it has to be in the like master grade detail style.
Mm-hmm.
I tried different stuff. I made my samples, and then I was sketching it out on paper, scanned it, drew it back with my CNC program, and then I was trying to get the shapes out of my circuit cutter. But this one has its own limitations, so I had like to, okay, I have 3D flat thing. I had to raise it up in I have a 2D flat thing. I have to raise it up in 3D, and that's where the fun starts. So the first thing was, okay, I need the course. Had like 3 attempts to it until it was like, okay, it's okay. I just kit bash it to get the details out because I don't know what to do, because I don't have all the necessary tools. And because it was originally planned for a competition, I couldn't use 3D printed parts. So that's was the first big step I had to do, because a human makes mistakes. The first core was like I had to orientate myself to the original, but because it was made with a machine, I scrapped it, I redesigned it. Actually, I got the idea from Pacific Rim too. My fiance and I we were watching the film. So and in the scene they had the first attack from the Fury, or was it a Fury? Yeah, there were the big cannons on the tower, and in the socket of that, I was like, okay, that's the shape I like. I tried to translate it into the Zephyr, so that's like the top part I was going for that kind of shape, and kit bashed it all around. And then I was done with the course, put it on some mechanical stuff, cables, and because it's prototype, it was not made for the double O in first place. So I had to made it like, okay, it's like the story is like, okay, it has to mate fit for a Gundam it's not used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I was like scratching apart, recast it, glued it together, recast it, glued it together, scratch build it, putty, glued it together, kit bash, detailing, put it together. Yeah, and then was like a first wing. I was done with the first wing. Like it was like empty, 2 sides. Had to make the claws and the cannons in front of that, and then I realized, okay, my connection points are too weak. It was like, okay, I slam it on the core and shit.
Yeah.
And then I had my first problem, my first big problem after the 10 problems I had before, because I need some stronger connections. And at some point we were on a toy fair, my fiance and I was like, okay, there are a lot of big Lego retailers and like battleships with 10 foot, and there were a big pile of parts you can grab out with a bag, and I was like, okay, those old bionicle parts, I can use that. And I tested it, okay, they are pretty strong, so we made some weight experiments, so it holds like 90 grams. I was putting all the parts I had done on a weigh, and okay, it was like 60 grams. Maybe I can go to 70, 80. So I'm in that range, and problem solved. Next problem, and that was like, yeah, a month with 12, 13 hours a day. And I had to restart some parts like 5 times. The cores where the side panels go in, I was done with the first set, and then you realized, okay, I have a little warp in it, so they are not square, they are triangular. So I had to everything in the trash, start from scratch. Yeah, and I used up like 10 kilograms of silicon to recast it, like 4 kilograms of resin, because you have some bubbles and some parts you can't use it. Yeah, it's not easy. It's really not easy.
No, but by no means. It's a whole a big project, and yeah, for those who didn't kind of just didn't focus on it, going so far as to actually like look at the weights, that is once again something you don't see a lot of builders do, and knowing exactly kind of what you needed weight wise and what kind of ranges you were in, and taking that kind of inspiration from the Bionicle pieces and reshaping them and using them, and it's a whole like you have to be that industrious to build something like that, because it's just it's a big project. And definitely anyone who's curious, please go over to the Facebook page and check it out, because it is just, you can spend hours looking through it and being like, okay, I can understand vaguely what that is, but how did he do this? And it's really a phenomenal thing. And not only that level of detail, but you also have a backstory for it, right?
Oh yeah, that was a funny story. So my fiance is making her master thesis, and he was like, "Okay, what are you doing?" So I doing my math. See, what kind of math? So yeah, I just do my math if I can combine like 3GN drives synchronized in a backpack and have a stabilized a thing to get into a trans and multiplex system. She was like, "What?" I made a photo of my math. She was like, "Okay." So what what what's funny about that? All of my builds have not a backstory, but they theoretically it's in their own universe they works, because I checked it. So okay, for the safer I had to go like, okay, quantum physics, and I know in high school I was like, okay, I what it's need to build a real GN drive. So I was like, okay, I need that and I need that. I had that kind of experience before. So but to go on the safer backstory, it was like, okay, the Repair 5 was announced, the musical stuff, and Setsuna is still like, yeah, traveling through time, meeting with Mikazuki and something like that. And Graham was taking over the Exia with one of the original GN drives and putting the two remaining they had into the Quanta in the Quanta backpack and combine it in the Exia, so there is no GN drive left. So at some point, Setsuna was coming back from his travel, and there is a fight. Of course, it's Double O and Celestial Being, and Graham is using his two Gundams, and there's no GN drive back, so Ian Vista has to like compare the stuff he had to use it. So we know 2 frames of the Double O was made, one for testing the twin drive system, and the other one, the prototype with the condenser, it's was rebuilt with the GN drives and the riser. It's remaining on Earth, and it's trash, because it's like 10 years after that. So, and he found in an old storage the Cepher unit and some parts of the resial of the Pluton from his early days as Celestial Being, and he has to like combine that into the Double O. So because there's no remaining GN drives, he has to like figure out how to get to that condenser or particle level so Setsuna can use it with his quantum brainwaves, his innovator stuff. So I was like, okay, how much condensers I need to get to like a twin drive or a triple drive system. And that was like, okay, I need two condensers on each side and two large condensers on the backpack itself. And there are also the normal condensers for particle storage on the double O. So yeah, it was a hell of a math in the story.
Yeah, you're not kidding. That's something that's really unique about Double O. And you had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but how somewhat closely related the Double O timeline is to our own in terms of like technology and stuff really does make it really interesting. But going all the way through, not just doing a Double O custom, but actually kind of pulling from the prequel, kind of coinciding with the first series to some extent, depending on what side story. But pulling the side stories in like the early days of Celestial Being and the other Meisters and the other Gundams that we don't see in the animation is really something that's unique because you don't see that a lot. And those designs are really, really cool and they're really different. You don't see a lot of things like them. So seeing the Sepher unit come back is really cool, especially for someone who is like seeing the side stories. I'm like, I know what that is.
I was like receiving midways when I was revealing one of the first cores and the wings. Some guy texted me, so you don't do a 1/100 scale cipher unit, and so yes, I do. What? And I was like, yeah. Why are you doing that? Because I want, and nobody has done it before.
Yeah, first of its kind.
I was blown away because the first fight was like 15 years ago when they made the prototypes of the Double O. So I'm lucky enough to have one of the limited edition box from the story, and with all the prototypes of the Exia, Astrea, Raziel, even the earliest prototypes from 2004 and 5. I have also the backstory they made for the GN drive. So, and I was like, why nobody in that time with the popularity of Double O and even Build Fighters has come to an idea to make this in a larger scale?
Yeah, I definitely think that would be something. Kind of harkening back to the Bill Divers things of like there's so much in Double O that really
Mm-hmm.
could like exist and be like, yeah, people would buy it. But the units like that would be somewhat interchangeable, like this looks cool on anything you put it on, why not make it? And that's what you did basically. You just decided to make it, and it's a lot of work, but it looks really really good. And like I said, we'll try to have some photos go through so people vaguely understand what we're talking about. But something you mentioned, I believe, either early in the interview or maybe slightly before. It's kind of hard to tell when we talked about it. But part of what you had said was the most learning you do is from making a mistake.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, your biggest lesson you learned from the Sepher itself, that whole build and that whole thing was?
That the biggest lesson I learned from the Zephyr is yeah, not giving up, because if somebody tells me, yeah, you're so talented and your skill level is so high, I think like, no, I don't. The only talent I have is that I'm too stubborn to give up. And that's something that's something in my country nobody understands, because if I have an idea of a model, I take it 2 steps further away because I can't grow on something that's near on me. So the most builders in my country is like painting after numbers, and that's boring because I learned like Japanese standards from the magazines, and it's yeah, there was nothing they can teach me besides of painting. And then some people were talking to me, yeah, I need like 5 months to get into Kit Bash. And I showed that my fiance, and she was like, what? And I set it up a table here in my room. We were building the whole weekend. She was like, okay, huh, that puts together here, they're here. And she was like, okay, what are they complaining also? Scribing, okay, give me some spare parts. I have like, yeah, a lot of spare parts.
Yeah.
So she was like, taking out the chisel. So, okay, explain me. Okay, you draw it on, you put on the tape, slightly passes. And she was like, even scribing on curved surfaces, and showed me, so okay, what's so hard on that? What are they complaining? And I say, I don't know, because they don't try. They look like videos on the net. So in my country, I'm signed as arrogant asshole, and nobody likes me, and they hate me and they attack me. But that's a other kind of story, because I was seeing a video on the internet, and they said, "Wow, that's so godlike," and I say, "No, it's nothing special about it." And they say, "Ah, you're so ignorant, so asshole." I was, no, now I can do that too. You can do that too. It's you can do anything you want. The only thing you have to get in your head is, how much time do I need to get to that point? How much do I have to fail? So in my first month after I decided to get serious on a hobby, because I ended my research on my animals, I had a lot of free time. I was like, okay, I had an injury, I had to stay at home, I need a hobby, so I was not like playing 24/7 Guild Wars and World of Warcraft and stuff like that. It was boring, because I want something to have in my hands, something I was like, okay, I don't need to get much around because I can't stand up so long. I have to get some in my table. So I was looking in, okay, I can kind of get into Beyblades again. So I was packing out my stuff, looking at my tops, and I found an old Gunpla from like the 2000s, and it was, yeah, it was the ugly strike high grade with the ugly stickers. And I was like, okay, I have to look. And I found Gundam 00, and then I started. Then I moved into other part of the country, and then I arranged the setup and was like, okay, what do you have to do? I was like, okay, go to HobbyLink. That was recommended to that time, and I bought like 30 Strike Gundams and Exias, and they were even texting me from the custom. So, okay, can we have your business ID? And I was like, what business ID? Because the packages are so big, we assume you have a business. And I was, no, a private person. That's for learning. They say, okay, you need 30. Hobbylink Japan was even sending me the original package, because, yeah, it's full.
Yeah, it's
We
just
can
it's a
save time.
big box. Yeah.
Yeah, we can save time. We send it like 5 boxes of them, and I start to fail. And even in a month, I had a vision with a little bit of scratch build, and I tried some stuff. So, and in the first months, I was like, yeah, all Gundams are broke, and I have one left. So everything I learned, I put it into that one Gundam, and it was like, hey, that looks kind of cool. Not what I expected, but I know how to do things. And so I stockpiled my stuff. So I was like, with some, I was in contact with some of the German guys. So, and it was boring, because I asked something and nobody was telling me, yeah, I know how to do that. And then I found, at that time, I found at some point Ivan Cosianto. That's the guy who wrote the book Scratch Build Evolution. I reached out to him and was like, okay, what do I have to do? And he was really kind person, and one of the big guys at that time, or he is even a big guy. And he was texting me back, and at that time he was like releasing that book, and he sent me a copy. and he signed it and was like, okay, welcome to the revolution, because I guess he recognized I want to learn. No matter what, I want to learn. And so I separated, and I was going to international. And then I was meeting in the internet with Joshua Dara, with at some point in Gunpla Network, Lance Nien was starting to like mentoring me, and the people I the crowd on the internet around me was growing bigger, so I have more opportunities. I can tell I'm rich because I have so many contacts in the world, and I can text them, hey, I have a problem. So at some time with the resin casting, I was like texting to Tim Hankins, Child of Mecca, and he was like, okay, that's okay. I would it doing like so and so, and he texted me back. He even helped me out of a huge burnout I had in 2017. And Lance also, yeah, he's something kind of late, but in 2018 GBWC he was texting me like 4 weeks before I had to pack it and ship it. So okay, change that and that. So okay, so I can say I'm a rich person in the hobby, not because I'm like the best, but I have so many people around me who supports me and help me if I need them. And it's the internet. You don't talk to anyone like every day. You text with each other at a time. You like feeling okay. I have to, and that's like a hand to hand thing. But I'm really grateful for each one of them. So, and they also know, okay, they can text me. So at one point, Lance was, okay, you live in Germany. I need an airbrush. If I ship it to you and you ship it to me, it's cheaper. Can you do that? It was, yeah, sure, ship it to me. So it's like a helping experience, and that's something I really appreciate, because in my country, it's a bunch of toxic people trying to fight each other. So I have no chance to. We don't have real community. There's two shops, and the guys fight each other, and I'm in the middle because I am the most hated person in the country, in the hobby. So, and it's funny enough because after the last attack, I was reaching out to some guys I know, and one of them from Australia was making contact with Chloe from Armor of God in UK. And the funny story is there was also a guy in Germany, and it's one of my best buddies now. And he was like, okay, I don't know about this toxic thing because I was never in there. He's a really good builder, and we helping each other. We are doing also a build off to support Joey a bit with his job, with his shop. And it's my fiance was like, okay, that's a kind of funny story because you live in the same country, but the message has to go all around the world so you guys can meet.
Yeah. There's got to be a middleman who lives super far
Yeah, yeah.
away.
And it's awesome because we texting like each day and checking up and helping each other, and that's something I really appreciate, because that's the one thing I guess that holds me in the hobby. And after the last attack, I was like, okay, I don't think I will ever be able in to get a community, because the shops, the people, they have to be get away, and we have to like build a new one, because even the newcomers, they get pulled into one of the sections, and they are like, yeah, they don't even know, some of them even know the basics. And I have some of people in the groups spying a little bit, so I can look into the stuff from time to time, and I can tell, yeah, they can't even answer proper questions like, yeah, where I can find this color or what I do this and what's the point of scratch build and stuff, and they don't know. I tried. I did tutorials for them, and the only thing I got from it was, yeah, you do it all wrong. And I'm so, yeah. I guess after 3 years, I know how to scribe and how to kit bash, and yeah.
Yeah, that's everyone on the internet's a skeptic, so
Yeah, yeah,
you get that hate every so often, and yeah, it is something that regardless of where you are,
yeah.
I'm fairly fortunate to have a good community where I'm physically located,
Mm.
but you still run into those people that either just think they're really, really good and just decide, hey, I'm going to attack everyone with this negativity and not try to progress.
Yeah,
Or just the people that just kind of put down everybody else that's getting into it, like, oh, you suck. It's like, well, yeah, it's just starting building, of course. It's going
yeah,
to happen. You got to learn, but um, it is something finding that group of people in that community or in the international community in this instance really does help, especially keeping you in the hobby and going through such big projects like you do. It really helps with burnout. Like you said, Lance kind of helps you get back in. And a lot of people deal with burnout, even if they're just snap building stuff. It just inevitably happens with any hobby. But if you got friends or something new comes out, it sometimes will help get that
yeah, yeah.
fixed. Now, kind of with the CPACs and the Sepher kind of talked about, those are the two big ones that I really wanted to hit because there's just so much to talk about with them. There's actually one other thing I did want to talk about that I totally forgot until I just turned to see it on my monitor. Going through your Facebook, there's I would try to see if it's got a title so I don't just okay. It looks how do I describe this? It's like a hangar bay is what you had done on it looks very Iron Blooded Orphans-y.
Oh yeah, that was my 2018 GBWC entry. It was actually my first one. It was the Apollyon.
Mm.
And yeah, it was based on a sketch I did on the Gunpla Network live builds. So I had I was like, okay, gonna build fighters. I want to make an amazing Epion. So I was doodling that backpack, and I made a first version with a high grade Quanta, and then I was like, okay, I because of Lance and Ryan from Australia, I got permission to enter GBWC, even I'm not in the country, so they organized it a little bit for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was like, okay, Lance, tell me that I have 7 months. What do I do? So I was scratch building that backpack, and I'm a little bit obsessive, you can tell, with perfection
Mm-hmm.
in the angles. So it's gotten better. It's gotten better. If I have some issues in one part, I say, okay, it's fate in the whole thing, so it's okay. But I was like, okay, I need those two wings get kind of perfect because it's a sliding mechanism, like the Epion, because I had it folded out to have the cannons and the cables showing. So I was like, yeah, each wing 20 times because I don't had a circuit cutter at that time, so it was all hand cut
Ooh.
and filed. So I made jigs, and then I had an almost finished version of it. So yeah, and that where my lack of painting skill uh, was sliding in. So yeah, and all from the beginning. So, and I was doing the base, putting on LEDs. So the title was Defender. So it was the base was inspired by Christ from Iron Battled Orphan. So I took pictures from all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I customized a mobile worker. So do the transport, there were actually figures in it, so like a whole story. So the base was attacked by another one. I was already originally planned to build an opponent side because the bridge is broken. So two Gunpla fighting each other, and they had to repair the like mobile worker, and the Apollyon Gundam was throwing from above onto the bridge and starts to dashing out onto the enemy. So yeah, and that was the biggest problem because I had to fix it onto the bridge. That's like the crack in the bridge in the foot. So yeah, I had to. The one thing I had to keep in mind is that I have to pack it, and I want to make it as easiest as I can for Lance to display it. And I was like, okay, he was texting me, okay, I got it, but the Gundam, it's not standing stable because some of the base was unstable due to transport, and I was like, what I do? So
Yeah.
he tried to arrange it, and even the figures inside, they were were done, and he tried to manage for my sake to like repair some of the paint because some of the rocks broke. And yeah, it was like, so it's done. I didn't win anything, of course. It was my first and it was dirty, and I was like, okay, I was like a little kid. I built shit. I was like disappointing in myself, and I'm so sorry for Lance because he had to endure like messages of this kind from me, and he was like, "Okay." I was like, okay, it's done." Aaron Simons was winning with his beautiful build at that time, and Lance was like, "Okay, you have to do this, and this." And I was like, okay, I had to build on, so cleaner builds. And I don't get anything done or much done in the year because I'm more like, okay, I want to try something out. And the people who following me since I restarted my page, knowing that I start a project and then I get like into, I don't like it, I throw it away. I start a new thing, like my recent GBWC. I started my design with some Freedom Gundams. So I already broke free Master Grade Freedom 2.0, and then I decided no, I don't want that. So starting over, and that's like that's the kind of mentality I have in my head because it's not worth to build it to a point because I don't like it, and it's in the end it's just plastic. It's work. It's not lost because you learned something, and even if you broke like 3 Master Grade kits, that's it. You can maybe scramble them together at a later point, but you have to get in your head that your biggest limiter is your fear to fail. And from that point, I was like, okay, I had to rebuild. So one point he mentioned I was like, I put it too much into the diorama, and I had like no more time left for the Gunpla. The same with the entry after that, and that was broke because a whole bottle of acetone where like I finished it and dropped. Okay, I had to tell Ryan, hey, please cancel my entry. My Gunpla is like, yeah, it's damaged, and he is like, okay, how much? And I was like posting a picture of a melting wing and making a pic of my desk, and like there was the acetone and there's a dot on the bottom, so there was the model, there was the acetone, figure it out. Yeah, he was like, okay, just enter anything, and I was like, huh, what?
What am I entering?
Yeah, what do I enter? because I concentrate on one build and that's it.
And I think that's something that going through your page is really unique about everything you post. Is yeah, a lot of people will have like work in progress pictures and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much just going through that you're experimenting, you're trying so many different things. You actually get to more learn from it and then really expect like, okay, we'll see this project through. Some people it's just that's all they post to their Instagram, their Facebook, whatever it may be. Of hey, I'm done. Look at this, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't show you behind the scenes. Some people it's a little work in progress, but yours is like the fullest work in progress ever. But especially with so many scratch built things, and you don't see that a ton. I mean, you do see people do it, but it's not like tons of people are doing it. And I think that's something really unique. That if there's anyone who's wanting to learn or experiment or just curious, it's a good place to go as far as like a reference. There's a lot of tutorials and stuff, but that's a really great place to find like good still images of like, okay, this is how this fits together. Or this is how this technique kind of works. And I think it's a good resource for people wanting to grow. Now, kind of rounding it out here, I think if you want to talk about it, you don't have to, but you did kind of vaguely mention you do have another project in mind you're kind of working on. If you want to talk about it, you can. If you just want to be very vague, you can totally do that too.
So it's kind of like a secret because it's also a thing no one has done before in that thing. It will be a double O again because I'm hooked up, like yeah, from my beginnings, and that's like I'm feeling to. And I had the idea, and I was coming out from my room, and my fiance was looking at me. So okay, something happened, and I was looking at her, and so I got my idea, and she was like, okay, yeah, your mind is like you're full in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted I wanted to have to show something, but I'm kind of like in the trial and error state. So we were in the craft store a couple of days ago. So I had some pipes and stuff to get like a shape I want to build, but yeah, the materials I chose was not suited for that. So it will be a double O project again, and it will be big. And one thing I try to implement or include on my page is like I want to show the people that I fail a lot. So the one thing I was like irritated from the beginnings was when I looked at some pages they were sharing from others, but they were also sharing just completed builds and not so much between. Okay, just the finished stuff, and I was like, okay, that's my mark. I have to do it in a one try. So and I was and then I found out. So okay, what if I tell the people how many time I needed to complete like a part, even if I don't use it, I scratch build like a lot because I like it and it's I wasted hundreds of hours searching for a part I have to cut and shape from a stock kit. In that time I was like drawing it and gluing it and that's it. That's scratch building. And I got a message like last year from someone. He was telling me I was going through your page and I can say you are the most authentic page I ever saw or I have ever seen. And I was like, okay, why? Because you don't share something from anybody else, or it's include you, like you are in there, or you don't show just the finished products. You show the stuff between. You even show the stuff you don't finish. I was like, okay, I inspired someone. someone was getting a value out of it. So yeah, it's what I do. It's okay. So I do it because I reached one guy at the end of the world. He was like, "It's cool. I like it. I can get as much as I need out of it." So I was doing it all the time. One guy earlier this day was like commenting on my half-backed zeta. I was like scratching with pipes and enhancing the proportions. And he was like, "Yeah, I want to see this guy finished." And as I was commenting, "So yeah, I am too." And I was like typing, "So yeah, it's already in the trash.
Yeah.
Maybe I will just restart it again." But I was like, while tipping, I said, "No, okay, let it."
Yeah, just let that be.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
let the suspense build. Maybe it'll come out.
It's okay. It's okay.
I think that is definitely yeah, one of the biggest appeals of your page and everything you post. Really, is that it's about the process as opposed to the end goal. So anyone who is either coming off a build that just like was like, oh god, that was terrible, or just struggling with the idea of experimenting with things, it is a great resource, and it kind of a pick you up as well, just to be like, okay, yeah, it's fine to try to go at this part and mess it up and try something else again and this, and especially with like sculpting and casting and scribing to an extent and painting, and there's just so much that can go wrong or not satisfactory that it does help kind of pick people up.
Yeah, because like I can only talk for myself or from the people I know, because they're telling me. But I switched from high grade almost 9 years building high grades to master grade. So I don't have like a stockpile of spare parts for that scale. I fail a lot because I have to get familiar with the construction, and because I also have to get like in the mind it's a bigger build with more parts, so I have more time, or I need more time for a specific modification. Because if you step up in something, like it's you can compare it to, you build a model car in scale 1 to 32, and then you start building one in 1 to 50. You need more paint, you need more time, you have bigger details, so you have to be more careful because it's a bigger part. You see the mistakes easier as on a smaller scale. So what I learned from working with master grades is it's really easy to modify the kits because you have a bigger part. So like scribing and stuff, it's easier. But if you mess up, it's also easier to see the mistake. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
And if you mess up, it's like $50 in the trash.
Yeah.
Also a thing.
Yeah, it holds a little more weight than a high grade would.
Oh yeah.
It's a little bit more, but yeah, I think you're definitely right. You're moving scales like that is something you have to consider, especially in terms
Yeah.
of time and what needs to be done. But to kind of round us out here, feel free to plug anything that you want to plug,
Mhm.
and if you have any message for people out there, let them know.
Yeah, also you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. That's my priorities in social media. I have also a Twitter account, but yeah, it's not so my thing. I'm not a Twitter guy. I opened up a Ko-fi page, so you can support me there. I try to get some funds for new equipment. I also try to find someone with like tools and stuff. I have some guy who's sending me kits from time to time, and the out of the box builds you see, it's like for their display. So, but the most thing I would love to have a supporter with tools and like teaching the people from the tools. Okay, you can get the tools here. You can do that with that. So that's like my goal is to reach out to the people and show them more. So yeah, modeling is still expensive, so I try to get some supporters there. And yeah, if I have to have if I have a care less, I can work on much greater parts and projects. So yeah,
It,
that's kind of so.
it's kind of the dream, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Get some support, get some pay, get some money in there. Especially for tools, because
Oh yeah,
those aren't
tools
cheap.
are I have like old files and nibblers, and yeah, I'm on the limit with that, so I need to save some money to get like a whole set of chisels and nibblers and sanding stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not cheap. Those things add
Yeah,
up
yeah.
real quick.
Oh yeah.
But that has been this edition of the Gunpla Insider. And of course, if you guys have questions, put them in the comments down below. And all of the links that Ben had just talked about are going to be in the description. So check those out. If you want to type it in, I guess on Facebook you can, but it's just easier to click the link. And of course, like our other content. That's what we're here for. We make a lot of it. But thanks for watching, guys. And of course, keep on building.